You've landed on The Substance, a podcast aimed at being biblical, thoughtful, and human. Join us each week as we engage the culture without the culture war. My name is Vincent Edwards, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Philip Marinello.
Hey, everybody.
And Trevor Aiken.
What's going on? Welcome back. We've got part two coming
here.
up.
By the time you're hearing this, our previous giveaway has wrapped, and that was 2 sets of giveaways of both of his books. So that's 4 books in total. And this week, we have 2 sets of his video lecture series on the same material. Whew. That is The Color of Compromise and How to Fight Racism. And what we're doing this time is not a mere just like, share, follow, things like that. We want this material to actually have an impact. Yeah. So go to our Twitter and Instagram. You feel free to enter both of those. What we want to hear is your pitch. What are you going to do with these? And we're going to have whoever wins also agree to follow up with us. So whatever group you want to get together, pitch us on that, how we can facilitate that group with these resources. And we're going to kind of get a Substance Brain Trust together, pray about it, and just kind of give these away generously. And we are very, very much looking forward to that. So 100%. Having that in mind, check this giveaway out on Twitter and Instagram, but get ready to enjoy Jemar. Man, bring in the heat.
Yeah, part 2.
So, question that comes to my mind, let's say it catches on to 90% of the American church. Ideally, what does the church then look like in your mind when that catches on?
Well, first of all, going back to the sort of moderate point, what would be sort of radical, or maybe a better term is urgent? Think about the relationship category, although this maybe fits better in the commitment one. To take action, like, you're going to need some Christians who are willing to take their children out of the predominantly white, well-funded public school or private school or Christian school and put them around black and brown kids, which are overrepresented in public schools, which are traditionally, unfortunately, historically underfunded, right?
Yeah.
It's going to mean moving or staying in certain neighborhoods where the home values are lower, where there's more black and brown people, and those things are correlated because of policy, historic policy, right? Like, those are the things that we don't want to touch. Like, if it's out there somewhere, if it's not going to affect my budget, my zip code, or my school or my child's school, maybe we'll consider it. But if we want to see some differences, that's one thing. Another thing is, you ask, like, what does it look like when folks take action? You got to interrupt ignorance. So there's a lot of ignorance happening out there. The Republicans in Congress, in the House, just voted to strip Liz Cheney of her position. I think she was the third ranking person, right?
Yeah.
It's on some foolishness, because all Liz Cheney was doing, who's no champion of racial progressiveness, all she was doing is saying the election was not a fraud. It was legitimate. And we need to listen.
Which is facts.
Hey, guess what? Evangelicals, Republicans are your people.
Right. Unfortunately, yeah.
I call it an unholy marriage, and it's one that persists.
Yeah.
Because even in the 2020 presidential election, white evangelicals who voted still voted at virtually the same rate they did in 2016 for Trump, right? So there was no change even after 4 years of trash, in my view.
Yes.
So get your people, interrupt the ignorance. Who are you talking to? I can't talk to them. I'm already on the persona non grata list.
Yeah.
Which is why we've had people specifically.
We're getting there fast too.
We're definitely there as well. I mean, nowhere near the platform you have. We've had people reach out to us and just say, "You're not pushing the stuff that Jemar Tisby is saying, are you?" And it's like, have you heard it? Have you read The Color of Compromise? Have you watched the videos? What part do you take issue with? I'd be happy to hear what it is.
Ain't got nothing to say.
He's got his receipts. How do you interpret those?
Let me tell you something. Racism is lazy.
It should,
It is lazy because racism is obviously going to paint with a broad brush. It is going to respond to fear mongering and lumping together rather than critical analysis. Right. So
that's right.
there's no way you can read either of my books and think that I hate the church or that this is just an angry black man spouting opinions because there's so much data to back it up, right? Like you gotta, it's lazy in a way, but in the way you gotta really work hard to get it that wrong.
It's wild. Or like Trevor and I have had a man who in some ways we respect tell us verbally to our face that you and Kendi and kind of the folks kind of lumping you all in together, like your message is that to be white is to be racist. And what you're saying is white is racist, white is bad. Black people can't be racist.
You're bad because of the color of your skin.
Like,
so you're
their ultimate
an anti-white
end goal,
racist.
their
blah, blah,
ultimate
blah.
goal is anti-white racism was the heart of
And
what
we're
we were
like,
told. And it's like,
that's a head scratcher.
Have you read? Have you listened?
Yeah.
Please show me that video clip. Show me that passage. I've read a lot. I haven't read it all, but I haven't seen that.
Missed that one. Yeah.
I mean, understand with a lot of Christianity, white Christianity in the United States, it's been more about pursuing power than about pursuing Christ. Now, they wouldn't put it that way.
Oof.
But
No.
think about this. Think about it this way. We'll just look at
The
politics.
evangelical industrial complex, man. Yeah.
Jimmy Carter was the first publicly acknowledged evangelical president. He said he was born again.
That's right.
You know, I think it was Newsweek magazine that had, you know, the year of the evangelical. It was like this new thing, you know.
Yep.
Billy
That's
Graham
right.
had been around for decades, but journalists hadn't caught on, didn't know what this was. So here's Jimmy Carter with a genuine sort of long-standing faith, even to this day, teaches Sunday school at his church, all that stuff.
Yep.
They preferred Ronald Reagan, divorced Hollywood actor who at one point was the head of the Hollywood Actors Union. He was very sort of liberal, and then sort of has a shift and a turn. But doesn't have any sort of real deep faith in Jesus or anything like that at that point. And they preferred Reagan over Carter. Why? Because he was too progressive. He was too liberal in his policies. They liked Reagan and Reaganomics and trickle-down economics, and they resonated with the welfare queen trope and all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
They preferred, first of all, you remember when they hated Mitt Romney because of his Mormonism.
Right.
But as soon as he became the nominee in, was it 12?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, he's okay now because he's our guy as far as policy. But then you got Obama, who actually has a deep and long pedigree in the Christian faith. His faith was never legit or valid.
Yep.
He was a Muslim. He was not even eligible to be president because he wasn't even born in the United States. We need to see the birth certificate, right? Then you get Trump, who of any president, anytime,
sure,
is antithetical to biblical morality.
Yeah.
And it's rah Trump.
So transparently antithetical, like not even pretending to hide it.
Not even pretending to hide it. And it's rah Trump because it was never about piety. It was about power.
Man.
So when you get folks in your network or on your show and they're like, oh, Jemar, he's trying to be divisive, when Jamar's not divisive. Racism is divisive.
Amen.
And if Jemar talks about racism, then Jamar's trying to see the church unified and healed, because we can't be that as long as racism is in the mix.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
people need to recognize history too. Literally, the letter from the Birmingham jail was written in response to was titled "A Call to Unity." So it's not as if there isn't a pattern to the resistance, the moderate resistance to the movements for racial justice.
History will tell on you.
Yeah.
The anti-racist rhetoric is not new.
It's not new. So all of this critique of critical race theory is fundamentally ahistorical.
That's right.
Nothing that critical race theory has brought up is new to the conversation. And in fact, there's a much larger body of work just in the Black church that is anti-racist, that predates by decades and centuries any framework called critical race theory. So just read some history. I don't even have to read. Watch a documentary.
Right. There's
Put it on
great
video.
resources. You don't even have to pick up a book.
Let's talk about commitment. People want to be practical.
Yeah.
Two things: anti-Black police brutality and voter suppression.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the systemic, institutional, and policy level, we need to be in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
On those two issues to start, you could talk about the border, you could talk about poverty, you could talk about healthcare, and any of those issues you bring up. So what does sort of an anti-racist world look like? It's that I shouldn't be able to predict the quality of your life based on your race.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Which is what happens right now.
Yeah. With no other identifying factors, you can go across the board: education, health, wealth,
life expectancy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just
opportunities.
On only that socially constructed for the purpose of oppression category.
That's the simple reality that we're trying to bring about.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be able to predict the quality of your life based on your race.
Man.
Yep.
So, Jemar, in light of that, our primary demographic here, our listeners, are from the ages of 23 to 44. So we are primed to try to do these things. You talked about anti-Black police brutality and
voter suppression.
What are some things that we can do in our communities? Like Twitter and social media can be exhausting. Be like, man, these problems are so pervasive and built in. Like you said, doom scrolling. Like we can just kind of be reduced to just a puddle of, man, things are bleak. What are some good ways to use our time and resources well?
When you talk about, you maybe have seen this hashtag abolish the police, defund the police. What that is under the umbrella of is reimagining public safety. Y'all, there is no rule. It is not one of the 10 commandments that we need to have police officers with guns actively patrolling, looking for people doing something.
True.
That practice is actually rooted in 19th century slave patrols.
Yep.
It is.
When that's literally what they were doing, was hunting down Black people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when they have quotas.
Right. Especially when, and this is what we saw in Ferguson, there was a Department of Justice report. One was on the exact incident between Mike Brown and Darren Wilson. One was on the Ferguson PD that said they had orders to basically fine people in order to fund the local city budget.
It was like the treasurer was running the ops.
I mean,
it's as if money and power corrupt.
Interesting. I wish the Bible had
Jesus had told us about
it. The Bible had warned us about it in, I don't know, the Old Testament or something.
So we need to support the efforts of activists who, when they say abolish the police and defund the police, they're saying, number one, something that is rotten at the root can't be reformed. They're saying we need something completely reimagined. I don't know what that is, but the knowledge is out there. So Google it, right?
Yeah.
And then number two, defund the police means, yes, defund the police, but that's only one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is invest resources in things that we know prevent crime, like well-funded education, like mental health care, like therapy and counseling and all those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're talking about. So don't believe just the hype of people responding to a hashtag whose knowledge of this stuff is a centimeter deep, right? So we need to look at that in practical ways. Have you met the police chief in your town? If you're clergy or church, can you be a chaplain for them? There's all kinds of ways. I think in most towns, the mayor, they report to the mayor, having conversations with the mayor about policing. The other side of it is prosecution. And so local district attorneys have immense power in the system. Mm-hmm. They have the power to offer plea deals or recommend, charges. And oftentimes they run on a conviction rate record, 95% conviction rate, 90% conviction rate. So it's like the harsher you are, that's a selling point. Now there's a lot of more progressive district attorneys who are trying to be much fairer, much more humane in their senses. So first of all, vote in those district attorney elections. Many of them are elected officials, and it's oftentimes a nonpartisan race. You're not running as a Republican or a Democrat. So
That's right.
check it out. All right. And then voting rights, voting suppression. Let me say that. You can do simple things like donate to Black Voters Matter, which is based in Georgia, right? And Georgia was critical because 2 Democrats won in the Senate runoff by a very narrow margin. And because of that, they have a slim majority in Congress, right? So it was huge, just this one state. You can fund efforts like that. You can fund local activist groups. And I don't want us to devalue the value of writing a check. Nonprofits, if you've ever worked in a nonprofit, a church or whatever, you know you need resources to fuel the mission. And I'm not going to be mad at you if all you can do right now is write a check. By the way, you can go to thewitnessinc.com.
We'll provide the links in the show notes.
Yeah, right. There you go.
But also, like, a lot of this is at the state level, y'all.
Yes.
We tend to pay more attention at the national level. A lot of this is happening at the state level. There's over 200 bills in more than 40 states right now that are going to make it harder, not easier, to vote. What's happening in your state, and I guarantee you the bills that are going to make it harder, not easier to vote, are being proposed by Republicans. These Republicans, they go to churches. They are in your schools. You know, can somebody talk to them?
Yeah.
Can somebody at least voice your displeasure? Can you get a group to meet with your state, your district's house representative? You know, there's a lot of stuff we can do. And I think we're always going to be a minority numerically, but we can make a big stink for justice.
Yeah.
Good trouble, as John Lewis said.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jemar, I was going to ask you, like, as we pursue that and people make the sacrifice and they say, you know what, I am going to lay down this privilege because it's come through injustice, and I'm going to go to the poor side of town, and I'm going to go to the public school because this is where I want to be. This is the people these are the people I want to be around. These are the, this is the environment I want my kids in, like you were talking about earlier.
And I want to contribute to its betterment.
I want you to speak about people who want to do that without gentrifying, who want to do that without taking over, who want to do that without centering themselves, to do it humbly.
I'm glad you said that, because I do want to qualify that. Like, when I was talking about schools and where you live, right? There's a sort of savior complex that can go into that. There's a gentrifying element that can go into that. And the reality is that's good for you and your sort of white family. Structurally and systemically, it doesn't do much for poor people, Black and brown people, right?
Right.
So if we're talking about, I mean, you can do that. You can do that. It's sort of a mindset and attitude thing, right? And in Divided by Faith, the book by Michael Emerson and Christian Smith, they're analyzing sort of white evangelical views on race. And they say, as far as recommendations, what actually helps white people turn the corner to really understand racism well, and particularly in its systemic and institutional dimensions, is not when you have just one Black friend. It's when you have a network of Black friends and people of color. So I think that's the bigger goal for white people, is how do you develop that diverse network of relationships and social network, right? And it's not just that one coworker. It's not just that one, person at your church or whatever. And to have a network, you got to deliberately put yourself in the way of diversity.
Yep.
And you got to figure out where that is and how to get there. It's going to be real hard for some white people.
Yeah.
Because the system is the opposite. So that we are kind of de facto segregated, even though people are like, oh, well, Jim Crow's over, segregation's over. It's like, well, yeah, but all those policies have an effect. And what's your social circle looking like?
You're almost like put on a track of racism as a white person. If you want to get off of that, like, it takes a conscious effort to jump that track.
Yes.
and like when you do that, everybody's gonna look at you sideways. Why
not
are
like-
you doing
Like you're going the wrong way down a one-way street.
Not like woe is me, but like genuine sacrifice. You got to sacrifice.
It's going to take sacrifice.
Yeah, you're not going to get the same support that you would get otherwise, but it's, you know what? That's the Lord support you.
Yeah, because we've been talking about power. We've been talking about money. Understand that's what whiteness as an ideology brings you. It brings you resources. It brings you opportunity.
Mhm.
It brings
Yeah.
you access.
Network.
So if you want to fight
Yeah.
the ideology of whiteness and white supremacy, notice I said ideology. I'm not saying white people,
Right.
as
Right.
in people of European descent, like human beings.
Yeah.
I'm saying
Right.
a mindset, right?
Yes.
If you want to fight against that, guess what? It's going to cut off resources, cut off opportunities, cut off access. That's the costliness for white people. The costliness for black people is proximity to whiteness can bring resources and opportunity and access.
Yeah.
And so we have to make the mindset shift that what we have is enough. Not enough in the sense of, we have been, because of injustice, excluded from resources and opportunity and access, but enough in the sense of we don't need to have the approval or proximity of white people for our stuff to be legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
That goes for theology.
Yeah.
That goes for our institutions. We don't need their permission.
That's right.
We don't need their approval. We don't need their acceptance. It would be nice, but we don't need it because we got the same
'Cause you
Holy
have
Spirit they
Christ.
do.
Yeah.
So it's going to cost you in that way. I think what we actually need to coordinate on as a people is more equitable funding for schools. It makes zero sense that a school's
Right?
financial base comes from its
Ugh.
tax base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
No
Say
sense
that.
at all. It's not good
So
for
frustrating.
kids, even apart from the
Yeah.
race thing, right? If the race thing is
right.
tripping
Just
you
in
up,
general.
it's about kids, man. Look, I used to be a teacher and a principal, so
All right.
I've thoughts.
Yeah.
And then voting rights is not about red or blue.
Mm-hmm.
It's about democracy, lowercase d.
Yep.
Yes.
The fact that we can vote and have a peaceful transition of power, that should not be a partisan issue,
Right?
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we should be working on that level.
Yeah.
Homes that are exact same square footage, exact same layout. If it's in a black neighborhood, it's valued less than if it's in a white neighborhood.
Yep.
The only difference is that there's more black people in one place and there's more white people in another. And that's not a black people problem.
No,
Nope.
it's not.
So those are the things we should be, because the reality is some of y'all live in Iowa, a state that's 90% white.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be around black people. There's a sizable and growing population of Latinx people, but so then what can you do? You can still work for structural policy and institutional change that's more equitable.
And awareness.
Because it's got to start
Yeah.
a locality, a city, a jurisdiction. There have to be the first ones. So wherever you are, you can affect change.
Mm-hmm.
Structural and institutional change, which is what white Christians struggle with.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's so true. That is so true. It gets called Marxist and all sorts of craziness.
Hey,
And it's like, y'all.
I always come back to the.
Sorry, not to trigger you. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm just saying when that happens, and it will. Because understand all this pushback, critical race theory, Black Lives Matter, all the controversy manufactured over that
It's a good word.
is an attempt to continue to define racism solely as individual and interpersonal attitudes.
It is.
Yep.
Because then you can exonerate yourself and say, well, since I'm not mean to black people, I'm not racist.
Yep.
And
That's
I'm doing
literally
my
the
part.
goal.
We've
And it's a way
we've
to
heard we've heard a
exonerate
sermon or two.
the
on that.
nation of
Yeah.
its sin
Yeah.
of racism, right? Well, by
Yeah.
and large, Americans are nice and we all want to get along. So America's not a racist country, Tim Scott, whatever.
Yeah.
So as
That's
soon
what
as
the
you go
Jim Crow
beyond
South
that
said too.
party line,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get pushback. And here's what the Bible says in Matthew 5. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of God.
Same
And
word
then-
for justice.
Isn't it interesting? Jesus ends the Beatitudes, he says, "Blessed are you when others revile you, when they persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely."
That's good, man. So on one of your leave louds, it was either yours or Tyler Burns. You talked about how evangelicalism isn't a term that you own. It's not like a space that is like important for you to claim. You've had Black Christianity, and like you have that tradition, and like everything like Esau McCaulley writes about in Reading While Black. But I do have this term that's like so wrapped up with this history. You know, it's evangelicalism supposed to just be 4 points, but then it ends up being like small government and racism added on, right? What's my work? Do I fit with a different definition? Am I like actually just fitting into the Black Christian tradition, even as a white dude? Or am I trying to reclaim and redefine evangelicalism? Like, how would you see that for someone like in my spot? Not that it's just something of an identity thing that, you know, I wonder about in the story, and I would love your perspective on it.
Public theologian and my friend Ekemini Uwan says she prefers terms that will survive into eternity. So, Christian, follower of Christ. Evangelical, the evangel, will persist into eternity. The body of Christ will persist into eternity. But Jesus died to create a community of believers reconciled to himself and each other. Jesus didn't die to preserve a label,
right,
or a term, or even a denomination, right?
Right.
So all that, I think people can come to informed, reasonable decisions on whether they want to use that label evangelical to describe themselves or their theology. That's fine. Have your reasons, but that's fine. I mean, the real question is, what are you doing to live faithfully to Christ within that?
Sure.
I mean, I know that sounds generic, but it's like evangelical could and should be a positive connotation for people. But too many people with that label failed to follow Jesus, especially on the issue of race. So how do you disrupt that? And it's a long story and a whole other podcast episode, but can we acknowledge that as we record this, it's 2021. And have you been paying attention for the last, 10 years at least? We can go further back. But like 2021 is not 2015. It's not 2011. It's not 2001. We've seen too much.
Right.
And we've seen a lot of people who claim the name of Christ, and a lot of people who claim that label evangelical actually double down.
Yeah.
On their resistance to racial justice, actually dig in their heels on being racially recalcitrant.
Yeah.
And now is a time when people are having to declare themselves more clearly and where they stand on issues of racial justice. And if in this time, in this season of what I call a sifting in the church, people are making it known that they will still stand against, or at least be way too moderate in the face of racism, why? What? I mean...
Yeah, man. No, that's the tension. That literally is the tension right there, because it's like, man, do you want to try to just relabel all those folks as fundamentalists? Say, no, you can have that label. You can go hang out over there, but like, we want to reclaim this centrally as a unifying point. Because I think the original idea of the label was to be the people who were more open to networking and cross-denominational efforts and unity and things like that around the stuff that matters, obviously racism is against the very heart of it, but then so many people who are against racial justice claim the term. So, you know what I mean? That's just a struggle where it's just like, man, I almost wanted there to be a space where this clearly declares a stance on racial justice in what it is. Because it is part and parcel. Like, it's not an extra thing. Like, it almost sounds like, well, I'm a Christian, but I fight for racial justice, makes it sound like those are different.
Like it's an optional thing.
You know?
Like
But it's not. It's not. We're not just a denomination that happens to also care about this. Like, I don't know, the people in the Appalachians also play with snakes. This is literally part and parcel of what it means to live out our faith in this place. Because this is where God called us. This is where he ordained that we be born in time and space and history. And so this is the realities that we're presented with for living out righteousness and living out the faith. And so it just feels like, man, I almost want there to just be a thing where it just is that. Because it's not anything extra necessarily. We're just talking about real Christianity. But so many people think real Christianity is less than real Christianity. And that's what I'm trying to show folks.
I think we overcomplicate this a lot. Like, I mean, I don't have a word from the Lord on whether you stay or leave your church or your Christian network or whatever, whether you use the label evangelical or not. How I got into this work was to alleviate the pain, suffering, and trauma of myself and Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And to put it in Bible terms, it was about love of neighbor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I really think we overcomplicate it, because if you work for the love of your neighbor, particularly your neighbor who's been disempowered, whose voices have been muted or muffled, it's going to become real clear real fast whether there's a place for you where you are.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 100%.
It's going to become real clear. It's not clear in the abstract. It's not clear in just thinking about it or talking about it. It's clearer in the doing. You got to get on the path. You got to get on this journey toward racial justice, and you have to take steps. And that's what faith is about. You're not going to figure it all out before you get started.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to actually take steps of faith and say, God, I don't know where this is going, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if the path is going to be bright or dark, rocky or smooth, level or steep, cold, hot, rainy. But I know this is the path.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna get on it. I'm gonna go on it, and I'm gonna trust you. So y'all, this is about, what's the greatest commandment?
Yeah,
Love God, love your neighbor as yourself.
that's right.
If you love God, you're going to pursue the good of your neighbor. As you pursue the good of your neighbor, it's not going to be easy, but it will be simple because it's not complicated.
Yep.
And it will become clear. Become clear. Not all at once, gradually. But you'll look back one day and you'll say, oh, I see how that worked out. What was confusing before is clear to me now. But you can't do that on the sidelines. So get up, get on the path, trust Jesus, and get going.
Man, that's a good word.
Amen.
Jemar, thank you for your time. Thank you for your work.
Yeah.
One of the things we like to do at the end of the shows here is do a segment called Substance Shoutouts. What have you been, I know you do a lot of heady, tough, and difficult work, but what have you been finding enjoyable or edifying recently? Any books, media, movies, TV, podcasts? What does Jemar do on his downtime that he'd like to share with folks? Yeah. If you got any downtime.
If you unwind. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know your audience well enough. I feel like people are going to judge me.
Dude, I recommended
Trevor and my album of the year last year was RTJ4.
Run the Jewels 4, so I already got in trouble for that one, man. You're not gonna get in too much trouble.
We did get some feedback on that.
Let's see. I bought a Kindle Paperwhite not long ago, and I love it because it's a little bit easier on the eyes. It's very portable and easy to hold, and I read nothing but nonfiction like all day and for research and work and all that. So being able to read fiction, I'm going through the Harry Potter series again now.
Nice. There you go.
And then I'm watching What am I watch. This is not light. I don't know why I like it. Maybe because I've seen the whole series and nothing is a surprise. But Criminal Minds, the series.
Oh
Okay.
man,
It's
that's not light.
terribly
it's dark, bro.
dark. Yes. Yeah. But they always catch him in the end. And I've seen
little
them
bit of
all, so I'm not like shocked by anything now.
That's
so it's
funny.
just like almost numbing where you can sort of zone out. Oh, I play on the smartphone and spend way too much money on Marvel's Contest of Champions. Have y'all heard of that?
All right,
Nice. Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, I've heard of that actually.
You can be different characters in the Marvel universe, and it's just a fighting game. And
What's your favorite character?
I'm hooked. Oh, well, so it all depends on you can equip your characters and you can level them up and everything. So I'll say my most powerful character, how geeky does it sound?
These are the
Powerful
cuts we want.
character is a 6-star Green Goblin. He's the
Right.
strongest
All right.
right now.
All
He
right.
goes from 1 star to 6 stars. So
There you go.
there
This
you
is what
go.
people
You
want
to
to
hear
hear,
real
Jemar.
deal.
Watch
and
out.
raw.
After all
The
that heaviness, a
inside,
6-star
behind
Green
the
Goblin,
mic.
that is.
That is that.
That's right.
Now you know about me.
Well, that's awesome. So folks can watch out next time they're playing Contest of Champions for Jemar and
Don't
his,
mess with this Green Goblin.
6-star Green Goblin because he's going to be coming for you. And Jemar, thanks so much for your time this evening and for just your work. It's so helpful, and I know, like you said, it comes with sacrifice. It comes with hurt, but it's something that is done for the glory of God ultimately, because it's done in hope and it's done in love of neighbor and things like that. So I really thank you for that, and thank you for your time with us this evening. So folks, check out his book, and maybe we can have you on for a follow-up sometime of like all these extra things, these rabbit holes that we didn't go down.
And maybe celebrate
I
some of
wanna-
the progress, man.
Yeah, that could be, man, wouldn't that be glorious?
Yeah, I want to hear stories from the field of y'all and folks at your church and in your network taking action, and you tell me what to do and what's been done. That's what
There
I'm
you
looking
go.
forward to.
And Campaign just came to Kansas City, and we're excited to get involved.
Yep. Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome.
All right, y'all. Have a good night.
Hey, you
Thanks.
too.
See you, Jemar.
Thanks
too,
again,
man.
Jemar.
Peace.
Peace. So that was Jemar Tisby.
Man, oh man. Some immensely practical stuff. Very timely, very necessary.
Yeah.
You know me, I get amped whenever we have high quality guests like this. I can't wait to put this out and just get this in people's ears and hands and get these resources out. So if you guys appreciate here what we do at The Substance, we would love it if you guys considered joining us at whatever monthly amount you're able to. We have the Anchor link in the notes there. And as you've probably heard before, we are working on the 21 and 21 campaign. That's 21 $5 a month supporters we would love to get by the end of the year. Trev, today I just got an email. Folks keep signing up at $10 a month. I won't stop them. So
Love it.
if you want to sign up at $10-20 a month, we will not stop you. We love your support, and honestly, as folks who are still doing this very part-time as a hobby, just trying to edify the church and the world and put good content out there, it honestly means the world to us. But if you're able to sign up monthly to partner with us, you can do that at the Anchor link in the show notes. Or if monthly support is not your bag, you can hit us up on Cash App at $the Substance Pod for individual givings. We just had somebody give, I think yesterday or a couple days ago, threw us $10 or $20. It means a lot, especially as we are very independent and starting up here. So if Anchor and Cash App are the places to do that.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Substance Pod. We definitely talked about a lot tonight, and we definitely want to hear from you. We want to know what you thought, what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. And if you are taking action, we'd also love to know about that as well. So you can either interact with us in the comments section on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or you can create your own post and you can tag us at The Substance Pod on any of those platforms and just let us know what you thought, as well as what you're doing. We are individuals who want to live out the things that we believe, and so and we love to know that you're doing that too. So interact with us on social media, and that's also where we'll have our future guests. We interact with you there, and we will have our giveaways. So follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Substance Pod.
If you have more thoughts or feedback or questions, send us an email at thesubstancepod@gmail.com. And any testimonials or other kind of thoughts that you want to share over voice, you can do so at our phone line, 913-703-3883. So we thank you for joining us for this special episode with Jemar Tisby. And as Vince said, get involved, get out there in your local community, and we will see you back here next time
on The Substance.
Peace. You want me to do it, or
let's all do
you
it.
guys?
Yeah, Why don't you do the?
Oh, well,
you've landed.
On the Hit it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
But Vince, don't mess up those. The thing. I'm sorry.
It's freaking 10:30 his time,
All right,
man.
might
Come
be.
on, you're gonna
Might
give him
be.
the winky laughs. See, now you done it.
Okay.